Another very common question about flowers is why my orchids flowers are suddenly looking not so great, because the older flowers are pretty, they're colorful, they're big, and the newer flowers are not that great. Well, this is very, very common. I would say 99% of the new orchids you will buy will display the symptom. Again, it is a sign of your orchid trying to adapt to the new environment. The older flowers pretty much show the full potential. However, the buds that didn't open yet and they open in your environment might be discolored, might have a sort of different pattern, might be washed out and even smaller than the previous flowers. It's pretty often, happens a lot with Phalaenopsis orchids, but not only, and it's really not a reason for you to panic. It's just the orchid trying to adapt to your environment. Okay, moving on to sympodial orchids. One of the pseudobulbs of my orchid is rotting, is turning brown. What should I do? Well, in many cases, you should definitely cut the pseudobulb because it can spread the disease to the other pseudobulbs. How to do this? I have, again, some videos down below with how I like to go about it. Sometimes I unpot the orchid, sometimes I don't, and I just cut the rhizome, but yeah, do check the description below. But of course, you need to investigate why the pseudobulb rotted in the first place. Maybe it was potted too deep inside the medium. Maybe there was too much water, you kept the orchid too soggy, and so on. So rotting issues, especially if they occur from the base, are a sign that water stays at the base of your pseudobulb for too long. It might be due to the fact that the orchid is not properly potted, it's too deep, or it might be because you water a bit too often for its liking. But the bottom line is, yes, it needs to be removed. Okay, the next question. I have some bugs on my plant. What should I do? Well, first of all, you need to identify the type of bugs you have on your plant. Sometimes it happens that they're quite harmless. You might get fungus gnats, or you might get some normal spiders. Doesn't necessarily mean you have a pest problem. However, if you do believe it's a pest and it's eating away at your orchid, Google is your friend. Try to search for the common pests of orchids, look at your pest and check the pictures and try to identify your pest, because they are different and they have different ways of being eradicated. For example, insecticides will not work on mites. So the first step in trying to get rid of some pest issues is just Google them and figure out what type of pest you have. Again, you have a link in the description where I talk about the different types of pests, and you will definitely see them. The ones that I already had on my orchids, you can see how they look like. Another question I get is, help, I have pests in my medium. What do I do? Again, first of all, you need to identify the pests that you have. Most of the cases, there are just some springtails, which are totally harmless. Other cases, there are just some fungus gnats larvae, which don't necessarily do a lot of damage, but you can control them as well. In other cases, you might deal with snails, and who knows really. Usually orchids don't have too many pests in their medium. Mites and aphids don't really stay inside the medium. Mealybugs can hide inside the medium. However, pests can definitely fall on the medium. It's really rare to see them though in the medium. Most probably you will see them on the orchid, but do try to identify the type of bug you have inside your medium, because most probably it's a harmless bug. Okay, now let's get to some general questions. One of the most common, if not the most common, question that I get is, help, I received an orchid and I don't know what it is. Well, again, Google is your friend. If you go on Google and type orchid species and click on images, most probably you will find an image that really looks like your orchid, flower-wise. If your orchid doesn't have a flower, at least try to identify if it's a monopodial or sympodial orchid, again by looking at pictures. There are a few websites that you can click and you will see some classifications. In any case, it will give you an idea of what type of orchid you have. Also in the description below, I have a link towards my playlists, and I do have playlists for the most common types or families of orchids. You can check them there, but the bottom line is, if you don't know what your orchid is, Google it. It's that easy. And if you are looking for the particular idea of your orchid, let's say you already know you have a dendrobium orchid, but you're not sure, again, you have in the description below my method of trying to identify orchids, and hopefully it will help. Keep in mind, there is no magic website, sadly, that identifies orchids for you. It's all about searching. Go with the details of your flower. Search for red Phalaenopsis if you have a red Phalaenopsis, or yellow Phalaenopsis with purple spots, or something like that. And do check the images and search. It's not going to happen fast, but it's just the way we have to do things. Okay, the second most common orchid question that I get is, why isn't my orchid blooming? Now, if your orchid didn't bloom for the past 3 months, everything is okay. Orchids don't usually bloom every 3 months. Usually, most of orchids have a blooming season, which happens once a year. And depending of the species or variety of your orchid, you can obviously Google and see when the blooming season is. For Phalaenopsis orchids, which are very common, it's in the winter, springtime. For Oncidiums, it can be any time of the year, however, they do take about 9 months to fully mature a pseudobulb, and so on. So if your orchid didn't bloom for the past 6 months, let's say, don't panic just yet, maybe it's not her season to bloom. However, if you have an orchid for several years and it doesn't bloom, it might be a cultural issue. So make sure that what you are providing is adequate for the orchid. Some orchids like intermediate light, while others do enjoy bright light, like Vandas. Most probably, if Vanda is not blooming, it's a light-related issue. Also, check if you are caring for it correctly from the point of view of watering. Some orchids like to be moist, some orchids like to be rather dry, and so on. Again, you kind of need to research your orchid. However, try to be patient with your orchid. They're not fast growers and definitely not fast bloomers. And the last question, which I don't usually get, but it's one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. Why did my orchid die? Now, of course, it's pretty sad when an orchid you absolutely love dies. However, you need to kind of keep a cool mind and try to figure out why it died, because it will teach you quite a lot of things and it will improve your knowledge on orchid growing. So try to identify the cause of its death. Try to see if it had roots. What happened to the roots if they were affected? What could possibly affect them? Check the stem for rotting, check the pseudobulbs for rotting, the leaves for spotting. Maybe it's a pest issue, maybe it's sunburn, maybe there are multiple factors. So in any case, try to identify the true cause or the chain reaction that led to your orchid's death, because in this way you will know how to prevent it in the future from ever happening again. We've all lost orchids, we've all did huge mistakes with our orchids. It's nothing uncommon, so don't feel bad about it. Until we figure out how orchids grow, we will kill a few orchids. That's pretty much a given. But it's very important to understand what we did wrong, or what happened to the orchid, or if it was a simple case of a very faulty hybrid, because those cases exist as well. And as a last idea, it is perfectly fine to ask your questions on blogs, forums, orchid videos on YouTube, and so on, because people will indeed try to help you. But when you ask a question, try to give as many details as possible, because this is how you will get a very fast answer. If you are going to ask, help, my orchid is dying and I don't know why, you'll probably receive a reply something like, well, give me more details. How is the orchid looking? What's happening? How do you care for it? And so on. And this can actually drag for several days, in which time you might have already be able to act on your orchid and save it. If you wait too long, it might be too late. So when you ask a question, give as many details that you think are important about your orchid to the person you are asking, in order for you to receive a fast and complete and informative answer, or at least something for you to research about. I enjoy answering your questions and I do learn from your experience as well, but when you ask me something, try to give me as many details as possible so I have a picture in my mind of your orchid. Also, if you can provide a picture, it will be perfect, because I can see the orchid and I might be able to give you a better answer, a faster answer, and so on. So alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more orchid videos from me and stay up to date, simply subscribe to my channel. I post on a regular basis. Again, feel free to leave me comments, questions, or suggestions for videos down below. I check my comments on a daily basis, but only once per day. So you can see why I'm saying give me a lot of details from the get-go so you can get a fast, super fast answer from me. If you ever want to send me a letter, you can do so at the address you see on the screen and in the description below. And if you choose an option on the screen right now, you can either watch another orchid video or visit my website orchidnature.com. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, share if you like this video, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!